All right, Lieutenant Rob Roy, formerly with the U.S. Navy. Thank you so much for joining us for this conversation on weapons and warfare. Really, just want to kind of to dive right in. I mean, you were a lieutenant in the Navy. You flew, propeller planes. How did you get into it? Where did you start?
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Ryan. Yeah, I was a lieutenant in the United States Navy. I got out about 2 years ago. I got commissioned at the Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland in 2001. And then I went to flight school shortly thereafter, Pensacola, Corpus Christi, Texas, Meridian, Mississippi, back to Corpus, and then ultimately started flying the mighty C-2 Greyhound out of Norfolk, Virginia in the mid 2010s with VRC 40, my squadron.
And for folks who don't know, the C-2 Greyhound, it's one of what, two propeller planes that can land on aircraft carriers?
Yeah, the E2 Hawkeye, it's got the big dome on top. So if people have seen the recent Top Gun Maverick movie, there's a 2.5 second shot of a Hawkeye, controlling the aircraft. Basically, we are a version of that. Take away the dome, same propellers, same cockpit, basically, but a lot fatter of a body of an aircraft, and take away all the officers in the back and replace them with 30 souls, so a couple air crew and a lot of passengers, or 10,000 pounds of cargo, or a combination of the two. So we were the COD for the air wing, the carrier onboard delivery. So we brought all the mail, cargo, people, distinguished visitors, supplies, engine
You were Uber for the
parts.
Navy.
We were literally Uber for the Navy, and Amazon Prime basically delivers for the Navy. I had an Amazon Prime patch. 30 years ago, they had a USPS Postal Service patch. So, and I would bring on like pizzas and shawarmas, and some people would get tuxedos and suits at the local markets overseas, and like they would go there on their Liberty call. And 3 weeks later, we'd like pick up all their orders and bring out huge boxes of custom made suits and, and whatnot to the air wing. Yeah, it's a good time.
Were you like the favorite aboard like these aircraft carriers when people are getting like, I mean, if you've got a hankering for some shawarma, and then here comes Lieutenant Rob Roy with ten
You
thousand
get
pounds, like,
you get not so much from the enlisted, but from the officers, you get bribed a lot. Like, hey, here's $20. Like, bring me back something. I mean, even to the point where, like, can you bring me back some bags of lettuce because the ship's water circulation, whatever, is down, and we can't wash our plates, and we're out of greens, and
oh
like
man.
things like that. But yeah, people definitely they preferred us coming on board, but it's not that we were a nuisance because we definitely landed just like an E2 and our wings folded up. We were in and out and we were off the next day. A little bit of jealousy there with the fighter guys, kind of like, hey, we're going back to a hotel maybe in Bahrain while they're staying on board. But we're like, hey, you could have flown this plane, but here we are. We're doing it. So like, I'll happily fly your jet. You let me know. Oh, no, it's okay. Okay, well, then see ya.
Yeah, that's funny. The camaraderie there between the Navy pilots is probably something to. I would like to be a fly on the wall while you guys have your back
Oh
and
yeah,
forth. I'm sure.
yeah, yeah.
Um, we kind of talked about it, but the carrier on demand, like how important is that? I mean, just from a morale standpoint, but also you transported VIPs, you transported like, I mean, how important is that mission to keeping the Navy going?
It's vitally important. The C2 was the C2 first flew in 1964. Before that was the C1 Trader. So they've been doing that since the early 60s and the 50s. I'm sure I'm not an expert in this realm, but I'm sure in World War II they need to figure out quickly that supplies need to be replenished, and that was probably done with ships. I'm not really sure, but yeah, absolutely, it allows the carrier to be out at sea for many weeks to months at a time if it has to be, because the C2 is literally the lifeline to the beach, as we call it, which is the shore. So we're bringing all those people and supplies on, and the mail and the morale and stuff. France, by comparison, they have one aircraft carrier, the Charles de Gaulle. It's the only other, I think it's like CATO. It's an acronym for, they have a nuclear assisted catapult. And so they do not have a C2. I've actually flown in a C2 to the Charles de Gaulle. I made a video about it on my channel, but they have an E2. They have like a couple E2 Hawkeyes, but they can't replenish like we can. So they have helicopters just like we do. So if you're close to shore, absolutely. But the C2, we had 1,000-mile legs, so basically 500 miles each way to and from the ship, 500 there ish, 500 back, kind of thing. If we needed to divert, back to shore, so
Mhm.
it allows the ship to basically be out at sea for a really long time and do what it needs to do.
You bet, you bet. Um, when did you have a YouTube channel, and you started it obviously when you got out of the service? Is that right?
I started it in fall of 2020 because, like everyone else, I was kind of bored and COVID. So I was still very much active duty, but I wasn't flying. I was working for an admiral at the time.
Okay. Okay.
Looking at the end of, I'm going to call it a career because I only did 11 years, but my time in the Navy. I had a podcast for a couple years called the Adventure Bound
Real
Podcast.
quick,
About
time out. You
yeah,
only did 11 years in the Navy. Like,
yeah,
come on, give yourself
yeah.
some credit. That's more
No,
than,
it's okay. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, like you did a great job.
yeah, yeah. No, but yeah. So I had a podcast, and I started in 2018. Did that for a couple of years, and it really wasn't. It was super fulfilling. I mean, you're obviously a podcast host, and I love doing it, but I didn't really have like an end goal in mind. I was talking about the outdoors and national parks, which I love. It's very near dear to my heart. And I happened to record a couple of videos of me landing on off aircraft carriers in 2015, 2016 with two GoPros. One was a GoPro Hero 2 and one was a Hero 4.
Yeah.
I say that because I couldn't afford two Hero 4s at the time, and which would have been nice because one was 4K and one was only 1080. If you look at the videos, there's one that's kind of grainy on the top and one that's
Yeah.
really clear on the bottom, or whatever. And so I uploaded these videos in the fall of 2020, or a couple of them. I knew that they would pop with like 10,000, maybe 100,000 views. No idea. No idea they would get millions of views a few weeks or months later. Because when I recorded it, it was for my wife and my mom, basically. I put it on Facebook at like, 1,000 views, whatever. And I didn't record it for the whole point of YouTube. I mean, if I could do it over again today, knowing what I know about building a brand and even telling the Navy story, it'd be like, hey guys, let's follow me out to we're going to go.
Right.
I didn't know that. Right. I just, you're so focused on the mission. It was a lot of during pre-flight, certainly before I did the first couple, it was really testing, like, will these work? Are these GoPro grips going to hold, kind of thing. Once all that was dialed in, it was like, because I'm not trying to be a nuisance to my co-pilot, to the aircrew, to the mission. So like you get in.
Yeah, there's more important
click,
things at play than
yeah,
YouTube, right?
click, and then you're like, okay, I'm focusing on the carrier landing on the boat, and then we're about 10 minutes from landing, boop, boop, and you're done. Like you don't think about it anymore. Then if you watch the videos, I completely focus on the task at hand. I kind of forget there's even a GoPro there. Maybe one or two, and I'm getting ready to take a catapult shot. I kind of look at it because we're just literally waiting to get launched at that point. But yeah, that's how I started.
Yeah. Well, thank you for staying focused on mission and keeping the YouTube as a secondary.
Oh yeah.
But also thank you for launching this, because you give people an insight into something that we don't see on an everyday basis, and you have a good personality and you add some humor to it. So
yeah,
from your audience perspective, I understand why it popped.
Appreciate that.
When the idea came to do like, hey, these videos are doing pretty well, I'm going to start leaning into it. Like obviously you've gained some notoriety within the world of YouTube streamers and all that kind of thing. What's kind of been the personal impact? Like, you get recognized when you're out and about? I mean, what do people send you stuff of, like notes of, hey, I want to sign up because I watched this video with you?
Mm-hmm. No one sent me anything. I've been recognized twice, like actually randomly. Once was at a restaurant in Washington State, and just during COVID with a mask on and everything, and that was kind of very surprising. I kept hearing like Rob Roy, maybe. I'm like, okay, am I hearing things? And they were being really nice. And then one other time was at Oshkosh, which just kind of made sense because I was there at the big air show. But no one, nothing too crazy. I think the reason is because a lot of YouTubers, they're talking heads, like kind of like we're doing now. I'd basically, instead of interviewing you or whatnot, I'd be talking to the camera and hey guys, here's what's going on. Like Ward Carroll, he talks about the news in the Navy and what's going on in the world, so they see his face. A lot of my videos, my visor's down. We didn't wear a mask like all the Hornet guys. I can't even see who they are, but visor's down. You can't hear me talking because, again, I recorded in 2015. I didn't really, I wanted to record the audio, but I just couldn't at the time, between Amazon and BH photo and video, like whatever. I couldn't find the adapter for the very specific Navy plugs.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think as my channel grows and pivots, I'm kind of moving into more of a general aviation direction in the next couple of weeks and months. I think it will definitely get more, exposure with my face and my voice. But at the time, a lot of my Navy buddies have reached out and just, said they like what I'm doing and, represent the Navy in a good light.
You bet. It's fun, right? Like you show, like there's like a fun side to service and everything. Kind of. You'd mentioned you'd carried some lettuce, some pizzas. Like, what was the oddest mission? Like, what's the oddest bribe that you ever took?
It probably was like that lettuce. Like, I had a very high-ranking officer, hand me $40 and asked to bring back as many bags of lettuce as possible from the exchange, just because they had not eaten greens in a couple weeks. They're still eating food. It's not like they were starving. It's just like they
Yeah.
wanted something with some life in it.
Yeah.
That was about it. I mean, it wasn't necessarily bribes. We just did a lot of good favors because, we know
I
we
say
were
bribes
privileged
like in quote marks, like
yeah, yeah. I mean, we knew we were privileged in a sense of like landing, sleeping in a hotel every night or, close, sometimes not hotels, but we went to the beach every night, went to the shore as we call it. And so we weren't trying to rub it in anybody's faces, especially while they're, dropping bombs on ISIS,
yeah,
doing nighttime
yeah,
missions and stuff. So we did try and do our part and just help out. Like, I mean, at the time Game of Thrones was big. So we'd be, like ripping somebody hand me like a thumb drive. I'm like, hey, my wife's in, on shore, like get the other thumb drive to bring the latest Game of Thrones episode. We just try and help them out wherever possible to keep that morale up. Yeah.
yeah. You
Looking
bet.
out.
You bet. How important is that in accomplishing mission and staying on task and being deployed for?
Yeah.
I think the Ike has been out there for what, like almost a year now at this point. Like
Uh,
how
it's sad.
important is
Yeah.
is all that?
Every time I see a record of, like on LinkedIn by the US Navy, it's like, oh, record broken. Like that's not a good thing. You don't want to see that record broken. My deployment was supposed to be 6, turned into 7, turned into 8 months, and I had no kids at the time. Unfortunately, my wife was, really cool with it. But, can you imagine if you have a baby that's being expected to be born on that 6.5 month journey and you extend? I mean, we missed, not that it matters because, boohoo, but like we missed right before Thanksgiving, supposed to come back before the 4th of July, missed the 4th of July. So we missed basically the entire year of holidays. Whatever. It's just, it is what it is. It's part of the job. In a sense, we were really excited to do the thing because at that point, I was a lieutenant in the Navy in '03, equivalent to a captain in the Marine Corps of the Army. And, I've been training for many years, flying for many years, and you're finally doing the thing that you're trained to do and doing it on a consistent basis. And you get really good at your job. There's a point where you want to come home for sure. But I can't speak to like Vietnam or World War II era, like actually being at war where this is no kidding life or death. I imagine that it's very different. I have talked to guys that, were literally coming back on an aircraft carrier on September 10th, and then September 11th happened, and then right back out, and they did a full deployment, and they were super motivated. I mean, can you imagine? Like now they're going to go do the thing, and it just was what it was, and that was the mission at the time. For us, we were bombing ISIS. We, as in the air wing, was bombing ISIS and doing good things, and there were videos being leaked online of really nasty stuff, and it did feel good to kind of like do your part. But ultimately, you're just yes sir this, yes sir that, and you do your job.
So that kind of leads me into my next questions. More of a serious topic. Uh, yesterday or a couple days ago, the CENTCOM commander had testified to the Senate Armed Services Committee that it's the most volatile it's been in 50 years, the whole region now.
Hmm.
There's a situation going on with China and Taiwan and the South China Sea, and obviously the Navy would have an integral role in anything that happens there. Um, from your perspective and from your 11 years of service, like how do you see things playing out in the world right now? Where do you see things headed if you had a crystal ball?
I think listening to a lot of extended family members and especially like my friends of my parents, like older friends and whatnot, and just that generation, they really get wrapped up in the news and take it to heart on a level that maybe is unhealthy. And I think it's important to realize that the strong do what they can and the weak suffer what they must. There are powers at play that you and I will never even know exist. And like, and maybe I do know, and I can't tell you. It's just there are things that happen all the time on all sides of the spectrum, politically, military speaking, different countries. I mean, like where are the submarines parked right now? I don't know, but like they're somewhere. Like they're off the coast somewhere doing something, and like other countries know that. So yeah, we read big scary news headlines. I think by the time that it trickles down to the general populace, whether that's the United States or maybe another Western country, it maybe it's worse than it is led on to me. Maybe it's not. It really depends on the issue at hand. I mean, obviously there are certain events that happened. I mean, go back to ISIS or even 9/11 and like certain things that we can pinpoint and say, hey, this person's doing something. But everything in the the Middle East and the CENTCON area, I've been out too long, and I had a top secret at one point. But even then, like if you're on need to know basis and you don't need to know,
Yeah.
thing. There's always, I will say, I do 1,000%, 100 times over believe in the resolve of the American spirit and like what we're there to do. Like none of us from an allied standpoint or just a NATO standpoint, believe that we're doing anything wrong. And I would say that the true is probably, for the other side of the coin as well. Like everyone's trying to serve their government and their country really well and do their job, excuse me. And ultimately, I mean, you can, obviously think critically. If you disagree with something, by all means, you've heard stories of, seen videos where the officer turns the plane the other way, and, whatever. But in these cases, I mean, I really do trust our intelligence and what we've been briefed and told. And a lot of times we're shown videos and images to kind of like, hey, this is what's going on. And just so you need to be aware. And that doesn't necessarily make it back to the public, for better and for worse, basically.
You bet. You bet. So if I'm reading what you just said, right, it's, there's always something going on. So we can't get too caught up in any one thing because there's always stuff that happens and we might never know about what didn't happen, right?
I mean, and maybe it's me being a millennial and now I'm a dad of 3 young kids. And, I hear things again from that just in my world. I just hear from my older generational friends and they get so wrapped up in the election or what's happening overseas. And I'm like, well, I say it respectfully, but like, it's not affecting my life. I got to buy diapers. Like, my son's having a meltdown. Like I need to like figure out things at home. But when you're obviously, wearing the helmet and you're doing the thing and you got the uniform on, like you're 100% focused on that job at hand. I think that, I don't know. I mean, I'm getting older, getting a little saltier and starting to turn like a crusty old guy, even in my 30s. But I think we all there are things that we can do at home and like on a personal level that would maybe, better, the country as a whole, whether that's like everyone hang a flag outside, like after 9/11, everyone's so patriotic, or just maybe instead of trash talking, the people you disagree with, like maybe like I heard somebody say once, like, be curious, like, don't be judgy, just like be curious. Okay. Like why is my neighbor not putting his trash can, back inside? Or like, why is China doing what they're doing? What's the reason, rather than saying like, oh, China, it's like, okay, like there's a reason here, politically speaking. And then if you're in their shoes, like, do you blame them? I don't know, probably not, because like there's always a game to be played politically and just on the world stage, and it has been for tens of thousands of years.
Yeah, yeah. So you're saying life is complicated.
Something to that effect.
You bet. You bet. Well, sir, I think it's just about all the questions that I had for you today. Really appreciate your time, Lieutenant Rob Roy. And we talked about this before we hit recording, but your namesake is awesome. And for folks who are not fans of history, you should look up Rob Roy, not just the movie that Liam Neeson was in, but also the character from history, the man from history, who Rob Roy is, right?
Yeah, great guy. Yeah, no relation, unfortunately, to the McGregor clan. I wish that I was, but I pay a lot of respect to Rob Roy. And I feel like if any McGregors in Scotland are listening, want to give me a free pass to a clan meeting, I'd love to join up, because I have a lot of a lot of feelings in my heart, because my whole life just been associated with him and whatnot. Some people think it's a call sign, but no, it's my real name.
It's your real name. You bet. What is your call sign?
It was Potts.
Potts.
For pissed off the skipper. Yeah, that's a whole other conversation.
All right, so we're gonna leave it there, but we're definitely gonna have to pick up the conversation.
Yeah, that's not gonna make a YouTube video anytime soon. Yeah.
You bet. All right, sir. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it. See ya.